Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You have tuned into the Rebel News live stream on this, a Monday, January 12th, 2026. I'm David Menzies, and my co-host, well, let me tell you a little bit about my co-host, shall I? Folks, do you know that today is National Hug a Ginger Day? And don't ask me how I know this, but there is a ginger in my co-host's life that is going to be hugged indeed, and alas and alack, it is not me. She is the she-devil with a sword. She is the Khaleesi of Northern Alberta. She is the sensational Sheila Gunn. Reid, how are you celebrating National Hug a Ginger Day today, Sheila?
Oh, I'm going to hug my little orange cat. Little Triggy.
You know, I think I'm down to having a sip of Canada Dry. That's about as good as it gets to me on Ginger Day. But you know what? I did a little research about this, Sheila, and I got to tell you, this was a response to an episode of South Park almost 20 years ago where they had National Kick a Ginger. So, you know, all the precious hothouse flowers, they thought, you know what, we've got to, you know, boost the self-esteem of gingers and have this phony baloney holiday. You know what? I think gingers are made of a tougher stuff. We don't need this holiday. And we took the South Park episode as the joke it was meant to be. Your thoughts?
Yeah, imagine creating like a Hallmark day because somebody said a joke on a cartoon. I'm surprised at the things that you didn't choose. For example, it's also National Kettlebell Day. For those of you who know me, that is my preferred choice of working out. I like to just lift up heavy things and put them back down. But it's also the Feast of Fabulous Wild Men Day. And so that is the one I thought that you might have chosen for yourself. It says, we've all got that amazingly wild guy in our company who deserves a treat on January 12th. The Feast of Fabulous Wild Men Day, from mythical wild men to European forest men. No, I'm not going to say the rest of this. We celebrate the wildest of them all with all kinds of feasts. And David, I believe that you are a wild man. And before we go on, it's not just recognized by me. It's recognized by Annalise. Is it Annalisa? Yes. She's going under a different name these days. Oh. Chicletization, but it's Annalisa. And as you know, she has got you under her skin. And there's no accounting for taste. You know, the heart wants what the heart wants, and Annalisa sure enjoys you. She gives us $27.99 already. Before you even opened your little ginger mouth today, she gave us $27.99, and it says, looks like my sweet Menzies is on the show, on today's show. I'm unable to watch the show of today because my job gets in the way. Could you please give Menzies a big huggy wuggy?
Oh, I am just so honored. I wonder if Annalise, I mean, I've never seen a photograph of this lovely lady. Is she a ginger, Sheila? Have you ever?
I don't know. I don't know. But I know that her eyesight is poor, and I'm praying for her eye health. But no, I'm kidding. I should tell everybody how they can make me say embarrassing things to David Menzies, if that's what you're so inclined to do. I'll take your money. If you are on Rumble and you want to get involved in the show, you want to have your say, you can leave a Rumble rant. That's their paid chat over there. And if it's over the $5 US cutoff, we're making it mandatory that I read it on air. If it's under that, I'll do my very best to get to it, time permitting. If you're watching us over on YouTube, same rules apply, but YouTube's paid chat is called a super chat. Otherwise, you can leave a super thanks. That's their paid comment. So if you're like Annalisa and you miss the live version of the show, you can always leave a super thanks. And we rely on you. We ask you for this. And there's no shame in that, because we'll never take a penny from Justin Trudeau's whisperer, Mark Carney, to do the work that we do around here. It's funny. Mark Carney's been in charge for, I don't know, better part of most of a year, and I still can't get my head around the fact that he's the guy in charge, because it's just so much more of the same. I find myself the same way you find yourself saying 2025 when it's 2026. That's how I feel about Mark Carney. It's just more of the same, just a different skin suit.
It's funny, Sheila, I was driving down Dufferin Street to our world headquarters today, and I saw a merchant with a big metallic elbows up sign swinging in the air. And then I went, who am I going to boycott now? Because that's a line in the sand you can't cross with me. And well, lo and behold, Sheila, it was the federal MP for the area.
At least it's someone who should be partisan, right? Yeah. So that's fair enough, I guess. But anyway, we should start the day.
Yes.
If you found out about the show today by way of your X account, over the weekend that was sort of under threat. Although the Liberals have trotted out one of their stupidest MPs, Evan Solomon, to deny the insinuation that the Telegraph of the UK reported that Canada, along with, I believe it was Australia, and always the UK, the censorship state of the UK, where they arrest you for memes and put you in jail for years, were going to ban X over the problem of certain, I'm trying my best to keep us on YouTube, certain AI generated images done by Grok. So Artificial Intelligence Minister Evan Solomon, no, I didn't even know that was his job, says Canada isn't considering a ban of the social media platform X, though his office is in discussions about X's deepfake controversy. They go on to say that the platform owned by Elon Musk has drawn global criticism over sexualized deepfakes created by X's artificial intelligence chatbot Grok, which have proliferated in recent weeks. So that on Saturday night, the Telegraph reported the UK government was gathering international support to respond to the controversy, with Canada sharing UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer's concerns. And they said the regulator Ofcom, that's the UK regulator, is investigating, which could lead to a X facing a ban in the UK. Now, after midnight on Sunday, the Liberals panic, send out Solomon to post on X. These people who are like, X is a problem. And then they go to X and then post. I saw Linda Steele, former global news journalist. She's on the West Coast. And she's like, I wouldn't have a problem with X being banned. Sister, nobody's making you be here. Show us how it's done, lady. But no, she goes on X to complain about X, and as a journalist promoting censorship. Like, as I said, it was like a Fibonacci sequence of just perfect leftism. But anyway, they said discussions are being held with, quote, allied governments and across Canadian government departments. And then CTV News points out the Liberal government has continued to use X despite the controversy. Exactly.
Well, Sheila, first of all, it's very interesting about that global journalist coming out in defense of a censorship ban of X, but it's completely...
While using X.
Oh, but that's besides the point.
Do you even get it?
But you know what? That's besides the point, because it's completely logical for those in the mainstream media to want X evaporated.
Sure.
That is competition for them. They want to go back to the dark old days where you only got your information from the mainstream media. And also, to your point, while she's using X, That's kind of humorous, isn't it? It's like, we should all boycott X. But you first. I have 38,000 followers or whatever, and I don't want to let those go, without, a critical mass behind me. It's very laughable. I can't get past Evan Solomon, the very idea we have an artificial intelligence minister. I mean, talk about a punchline built into the joke, or in this case, the title.
So Orwellian, right?
Well, Sheila, I go back to the last federal election campaign, and you remember, I don't know if it exists anymore, but he was posting I guess it was his kickoff, and it had the big red Liberal bus. But instead of the word liberal, I don't know, can I say that R word? There, Olivia, super producer, has already found it. I won't say it. I'll just let the visuals. Now, that was the official posting for Evan Solomon. Look what he thought was the liberal bus. Well, I know there might be a joke there, truth in advertising, but anyway, this is the guy who's going to be the gatekeeper for artificial intelligence. I don't know. I'm not buying what he's selling, Sheila, but I can totally understand why the Liberals would be all about banning X. Not so much, by the way, when Twitter was around under Jack Dorsey. Oh, no. That was complete censorship. But right now, I think Elon Musk, he should get the Nobel Prize for freedom of speech, for liberating Twitter into X. And clearly, certain powers that be don't like it. And I say, tough.
Well, I had a slightly broader concern about the Liberals' stupidity, besides, the basic, censorship issues. The Liberals themselves are not concerned with censorship. They are advancing all kinds of pieces of censorship legislation. They've passed many, and they're going to bring in more. So that's not their concern, Canadians being able to speak their minds. They obviously don't want us to speak our minds. So perhaps we could appeal to them on the fact that we are in the middle of a effing trade war with the Americans, you dummies. And in August, Trump threatened tariffs and a threat to curb exports against countries with digital rules targeting U.S. tech. So if you were a country that targeted Meta, which we did, if you were a country that targeted Google, which we did, and now you're a country that's going to target X, you are subject to trade sanctions. This is a trade issue with them. And so he's gonna come after us for this if we continue to pursue this in the middle of a trade war that is crushing parts of our sectors. And then we also have just at the end of December. This is from the United States Department of State. So Marco Rubio's Department of Everything. An announcement of actions to combat the global censorship industrial complex. And Mark Carney has just signaled that he's part of it with the Australians and the UK. The State Department is taking decisive action against 5 individuals. So they're not messing around here, who have led organized efforts to coerce American platforms to censor, demonetize, and suppress American viewpoints they oppose. These radical activists and weaponized NGOs have advanced censorship crackdowns by foreign states, in each case targeting American speakers. It's not just American speakers, they go on to clarify, and American companies. As such, I've determined their entry, presence, or activities in the United States have potentially serious adverse foreign policy consequences for the United States. And they're not screwing around here. Listen to this. Based on these determinations, the department has taken steps to impose visa restrictions on agents of the global censorship industrial complex, who, as a result, will generally be barred from entering the United States. And we should
Sheila,
deport them if they're there, by the way.
I'm very happy you brought this up. That was one of the points I meant to make, because 11 months ago, February of last year, I remember being at an event with our beloved big boss man, Ezra Levant, and this was being floated back then. I don't know if you remember. And I said, Ezra, are the Liberals serious? And he said, for all the reasons you just mentioned, it's not a chance. And even more so now, as we, I don't know, can anyone send me a super chat and explain where elbows up is right now in terms of solidifying trade deals? Could you imagine at this delicate point in Canada-U.S. relations, the Carney Liberals banning X, and what Rubio and Trump, how they would react? It's a non-starter. It is not going to happen for that reason alone.
Yeah. Yeah, well, but I don't know. I do not trust the Liberals, and never underestimate their stupidity on trade issues, right? Like, this is where we're at with them. So, I mean, it's clear that they were in talks with the UK. I think the talks got linked and the Canadians panicked. That's what I think happened.
Well, be that as it may, I'm not saying, Sheila, that the Liberals don't want to ban X. It's beyond their control. Those are not the, paid lapdogs in the mainstream media doing their bidding. I'm just saying for the threat of reprisals, which would surely happen, I think that's what makes us a non-starter.
I hope so.
Okay.
I hope so. Should we go into the protests happening in Toronto? It's so weird to see a protest on the streets of Toronto against radical Islam. It's peculiar, unsettling. It's bizarre. I haven't seen it in a long time. Why don't you tell us about this? We've got from Honest Reporting Canada.
Well, the Honest Reporting thing is, which I think we, here we are.
Yeah.
An incredible 40,000 Torontonians, check that out, took to the streets today to stand with the Iranian people in their fight to end the Islamic Republic of Iran. Now, you know, Sheila, here's the thing. I live in Richmond Hill, Ontario. There is and by the way, that is Yonge Street in Richmond Hill. I think they're going towards where the public library is. And I can tell you there is a 14% Persian minority at least, but that's the latest figure I had from the census. And every single person in that community I have met are absolutely anti-regime, with the exception of one, the now deposed Majid Johari, who was the MP for Richmond Hill South for a decade under the Trudeau Liberals. And what I find absolutely spectacular, Sheila, is that when you see the type of people that are out at the Hamas hole protests, they would denounce these people. They would say you're Islamophobic, even though the vast majority of Persians in Iran, about 90 million, are Muslim. Oh, but what do they know, right? So look at who's backing the regime. It's unbelievable. The same people that back Hamas. And really, you don't have to do a lot of head scratching to connect the dots. The Iranian regime has been the biggest funder of Hamas all these years, as well as other terrorist groups like Hezbollah and the Houthis. So they like the regime, but they're trying to frame it in Islamophobia, even though most of these people are Muslims. Sheila, this is unbelievable.
Yeah, it's very bizarre. And the silence largely from the federal government on this issue, as one of I think they are the largest state funder of terrorism in the entire world, is about to fall single-handedly through civilian protests.
Yes.
And they just don't seem to care. We've got video from our own Scarlett Grace, who is out in the streets of Toronto with these people. Don't count on the CBC to be there. I think they finally got around to talking about the Iranian protests over the weekend, just briefly. But look at this. And I'm sure Scarlett was very well received while she was there.
And on a frigid day, no less. And Sheila, here's my theory why the mainstream media, both here in Canada and in the US, with some notable exceptions, are just considering this a nothing burger when it really is front page news, because I think in days something is really going to potentially happen in Iran. And that is, the ranks of the mainstream media are filled with people who are sympathetic to the Marxist and Islamist causes out there.
Yep.
So they see the fall of the regime as a bad thing. They like the idea of an Islamist regime. They like the idea of Sharia law. They like the idea of state control. So that's why this goes by the wayside, and they just they continue to focus on what's happening in Gaza. So that's my theory.
I do too. We've got Trump's comments on this too. He says the leaders of Iran are tired of being beat up by the U.S. and Iran wants to negotiate. I bet they do. I bet they don't want to get Maduro'd in the middle of the night. So let's watch this.
They do. They called yesterday.
Is it still an option?
Iran called to negotiate.
Yesterday.
Yesterday, the leaders of Iran called. They want to negotiate. I think they're tired of being beat up by the United States.
Are you sharing any details on that call?
Iran wants to negotiate. Yes.
Negotiate what?
We may meet with them. I mean, a meeting is being set up, but we may have to act because of what's happening before the meeting.
Right.
But a meeting is being set up. Iran called. They want to negotiate. Thank you very much, everybody.
So what the president is saying there, as far as I can interpret, Sheila, that there are talks to have talks in the future. But what would it be, though? What would the regime want? And right now, is making any negotiation to keep this same regime in place, is that seriously on the table? Look at what's happening in Iran when those images do get out. I mean, it made that Young Street protest look like a quaint gathering. And also, one of the numbers I saw from the weekend, 570 civilians shot to death, tens of thousands detained. How can you negotiate with this kind of odious regime?
I don't think you can. I think it's negotiating whether the Mossad comes and kills them or if they're allowed to be brought to America for justice. I think that's where they're at. It's like, okay, are you going to come face justice in the United States, or are we going to just let the Israelis do what they plan to do to you?
On the flip side, Sheila, I love the word you used a few minutes ago. They don't want to get Maduro'd. But I'm wondering if the U.S. did get involved, and of course Donald Trump, he's the very opposite of boots on the ground. He does these surgical hits, as we saw in Caracas last week. But in terms of going into Tehran or other cities in Iran, what could a U.S. military impact be? Because certainly the potential for collateral damage in terms of the tens of thousands of Persian civilians out there, I mean, that makes it way more tricky, I think, than what happened in Venezuela.
Yeah, I mean, I don't anticipate a hot war with Iran. I don't think after Iran saw what happened to Maduro, I don't think they're interested in that. I think that they now fully see the American capabilities. And also they have the Israelis right there who routinely execute their military scientists in the dead of night all the time. So I don't know. I think the Iranians finally know that the Americans are serious. And I think that's why, though there has been some crackdown and loss of life of civilians, it's not been what we would have expected perhaps under Obama or Biden.
Oh, Obama and Biden, they would send B-52 bombers over, not with bombs, but with cash, stacks of U.S. $100 bills, and they would turn a blind eye to the nuclear program. And, we mentioned this on the morning meeting. Obama subscribed to some perverse leftist ideology when it comes to the Middle East called equilibrium. So they look at Israel. It's the most powerful country there. It has nukes. So in order to balance the teeter-totter, we've got to enrich Israel's number one enemy, Iran. And how does that make that already bad neighborhood safer or more secure? It is just an outrageous leftist ideology, Sheila, which I think would have been perpetuated had Kamala Harris taken the White House last November.
It would have been worse. It would have been worse. Well, we saw right after Maduro got Maduro'd, there were reports that the mullahs were looking into relocating themselves to Russia, and I wouldn't be surprised to find out that some already had.
I think that's a very good idea in terms of
probably.
self-preservation. I would get out of Dodge. I don't, it's hard to say, like the people there need our help. I'm just wondering what it means. Arming civilians, maybe, Sheila. I'm not sure because, like I said earlier, Trump is not a boots on the ground kind of guy. So, but they do need our help, I think.
Yeah.
And, or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I think back to the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1990. That happened so quickly. Once these things get rolling, and I know it was a last-minute decision by the government of East Germany whether they were going to fire on their own people. It was like a coin flip, and they decided, thankfully, no, let it be. So we'll see what happens.
Now, let's move ahead to the Toronto police, because it has been heartwarming to see the people of Toronto take to the streets against Islamic radicalism. The Toronto police are doing what they always do, and that is escorting these people through the bad guys through the streets. So this is from Leviathan. Toronto police provide a personal escort leading the march. And these are radical pro-Hamas activists. They're leading them to the Jewish neighborhood of Bathurst and Shepherd.
I actually believe that is indeed the intersection of Bathurst and Shepherd, because I recognize the Royal Bank and the Petro-Canada.
Yeah.
Here's the difference, though, Sheila, is that when we last went there, that was Lincoln J and I, and that was more than a month ago, and we had the Jumbotron truck, the Hamashols did indeed modify their behavior. They stuck to the major arteries. If you've never been to North Toronto, folks, Bathurst and Shepherd are two major arteries. What these cats were doing before were breaking off into the residential section, so not, industrial stores and malls and whatnot, but actual houses, and going up to, in some cases, 80 or 90-year-old Jewish women and screaming at them that they're genocidal maniacs. And the cops couldn't give, a tinker's damn. So I'm wondering, from the footage we saw, it looks like they are still sticking to the major arteries. Now, it is still odious and egregious, and they're still breaking the law. I mean, they chant for the genocide of the Jewish people. They display swastikas. They do cosplay of Sinwar, the October 7th terrorist mastermind. And the cops do nothing. Oh, no, sorry, Sheila. On cold days, the cops will bring them Timbits and Java, because, chanting genocide, that can really take a lot out of you when it's like -20.
You got to stay warm. You got to stay warm when even hate isn't enough to warm your heart. This is ridiculous. And this guy's covering his face.
Yep.
Remember when we had a law against that in this country under Stephen Harper?
Yep. And it should be brought back and enforced. There's no reason for that other than to conceal your identity. And I mean, just think about it, Sheila. If you're walking around in public like that, and if that guy was to throw a haymaker at you and I, and we go to the police and go, can you describe him? Oh, yeah, it was a guy with sunglasses with a tablecloth over his head. I mean, how does that bring the culprit to justice? It is inherently unfair. And, I should note, folks, that if people are wondering why you're relying on Leviathan's footage, and by the way, Leviathan does fantastic work.
Amazing work.
Good job there. It is rife with danger for Rebel News reporters to go to that intersection just to publicly report.
Ezra got arrested there.
Ezra got arrested there. I got arrested there.
Yeah.
And it's only by the whim of whoever the commanding officer is. So you can chant genocide, you can display swastikas, you can cosplay as a terrorist, you can carry around a fake hand grenade as they were during the Walk for Israel, and the police won't do anything. But if you're there and you want to ask insensitive questions and the Hamasos get offended, they go running to the cops, and the cops say, right, out of here or you're under arrest for, and here's the most hilarious thing, Sheila, for disturbing the peace.
Yeah. Whose peace? Whose peace?
Yeah.
We've got one more clip, and I think I've kept us pretty well on track because we're halfway through the show and we're approaching an ad break. We've got a video of the Canada First rally leader calling on the Conservatives to take tougher action on immigration. Toronto police say 9 arrests were made on Saturday as left-wing counter-protesters clashed with Canada First demonstrators at Nathan Phillips Square. Now, we can watch this, and then I have my comments on what the leader said, because I think there's one little wrench in his calls for the Conservatives to do more.
I don't see one Conservative MP here. No, get your together, Conservatives, because you aren't Conservative. You aren't Canada First. We are Canada First! Yeah! Yeah! So, Pierre, get your together. Get your MPs on the right side of history. Stop being and walking around things and actually address the problems in our country. Pierre, you're losing support, bro. I won't lie to you. Don't be a puppet. Be a real politician who loves this country. And that's why we need people like all of us here to start getting into that. Start being a politician. Go to your school boards. Go to your MP's office. Rip them a new But Conservatives, get your stuff together. You had the ability to make change in this country, but in my opinion, you played it too soft. You played it too safe. If you would have leaned into immigration during the election, game over. Game over. But now you're costing us more time under a Liberal government. We got Mayor Chow here. She's a good dancer. She's a good dancer, but like, we're a scrappy pack when you need them, eh? Toronto!
Okay. I think that's probably good. I'm not sure what you want the Conservatives to do. They're sitting in opposition. Yes, in the lead up to the election, they should have. They should have come out stronger on the issue of immigration, because out of control immigration is driving so many of the societal problems we're dealing with: inflation, access to healthcare, housing, all that, youth unemployment, driving down wages. Yes, but you know who's been excellent on this? The Conservative critic. Michelle Rempel. She's been absolutely excellent. By the way, she did introduce a bill which the Liberals rejected to deal with sexualized deep fakes of AI content. And so the Liberals rejected that. Just going back to the issue off the top of the show, the Liberals rejected that, and now they want to ban X instead of dealing with the thing that is the problem. That's the Liberal solution. Why use a proper hammer when you can always use a sledgehammer? But she's been excellent, absolutely excellent on immigration. She says, I've been asking the Liberals for months what their plan is to get millions of people. She wants millions of people removed from the country. What more do you want her to say? who have expiring visas, and non-status at all to leave. And she points out the problems it's causing. If you watch Rempel at committee go after the immigration minister, you'll need a cigarette afterwards. She's excellent. She's excellent
Wait a
at
minute, what do
it.
you mean by that? You'll need a cigarette. I've never smoked in my life.
Me neither. Me neither. She's just really good at eviscerating the liberals on this stuff. Why? Because she's an economist. And so she knows what's driving all the economic problems, and she looks at the numbers of non-status people in our country and said, you got to go. You don't got to go home, but you can't stay here. She's been saying it. So yes, I get the frustration that these things should have been said in the lead up to the last election. But the Conservatives have had that come to Jesus moment on this topic. They were mild on it in the lead up, but boy, they are hammering on this issue now, and they've sent one of their best.
You know, Sheila, you make excellent points, and I agree with you entirely. I want to take a different angle. You mentioned that there were 8 or 9 arrests, and it's my understanding, I heard 8, all of them were the counter demonstrators on the far left Antifa side, including somebody who actually punched a police officer in the face.
My goodness.
And I understand where they're coming from. You see, first of all, they are hardcore ideologues. When they look at people at Canada First just asking for illegal immigrants to be deported, which is completely reasonable, you are therefore a fascist or a Nazi or perhaps both. Also, Sheila, I understand why they find it completely acceptable to be violent, including throwing a haymaker at a police officer, because for more than 2 years now in Toronto, we have allowed the Hamas souls to go into residential neighborhoods, as we've talked, to go into shopping centers like the Eaton Centre, to occupy Indigo bookstores and throw paint at it, to harass people, just like people with no skin in the game, just trying to do their Christmas shopping. Nothing. No charges ever, as you pointed out, even getting a police escort to spew your vile hatred. So for those people...
Don't forget the coffee.
Yeah, the coffee and donuts, they'll never live that down. So for the Antifa people to go the next step, which is to throw a punch at a police officer, I completely understand that, because they have pushed the envelope for more than 2 years. Nothing ever happens except for Uber Eats delivery by police officers. So I get why they're acting that way. So I'm glad to see these reprobates finally getting arrested. But, you know, it's kind of funny, Sheila. It had to happen only when a cop, one of their own, was assaulted. That's when they applied the law. So I'm a little queasy about that, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, don't punch a cop. But yeah, I mean, they've been assaulting people and running amok down there for, like you said, the better part of 2 years. On the same topic, meanwhile, in the United States, again, from Marco Rubio's Department of Everything.
He's great.
Oh, he's so good. And I love all the, like, Marco Rubio getting, like, all the memes where they put Marco in the outfits of the new job that he does, like when he's in like a parka, and it's like Marco Rubio when he has to be the governor of Greenland, Marco Rubio when he has to be the governor of Canada. It's funny. But anyways, the State Department has now revoked over 100,000 visas. These are not the illegal immigrants that they're deporting, or they're allowing them to self-deport, and you show up and get a teddy bear and you get a better class of a flight home and you get some money if you go on the app and then self-deport before ICE comes and drags you out in handcuffs and then throws you in a disgusting cell. You can do it the easy way or the hard way. These are the visas that they're revoking. 8,000 student visas, 2,500 specialized visas for individuals who had encounters with U.S. law enforcement for criminal activity. We will continue to deport these thugs to keep America safe. So these are revoked visas, not just the illegals going home. So it can be done. You can just, as Ezra says, you can just do things.
Of course. And that's why our billboard truck, Sheila, has always had deporthamas.com. And the very important thing here, because Trump's critics will say, oh, I thought you were such a fan of the Constitution. Where is the First Amendment? Where is freedom of speech? Here's the deal. These are not U.S. citizens.
Right.
The Constitution of the United States of America does not protect those who are here visiting. And when you are visiting another country, you should be on your damn best behavior. And the same deal would be here in Canada. I have seen in Toronto, Sheila, the last 2 years, people who are temporary foreign workers, international students, they're on student visas, you name it, they are not Canadian citizens, they're not even permanent residents, and they're getting away with near murder, and our government does nothing because there's no political will to enforce the law.
You know what? Remember, that was one of my questions that I asked Polyev about at the debate. I said, when these guys are non-citizens and they're taking to the streets to support Hamas, what should be done about it? And he sort of danced around about, like we have to crack down on extremism or whatever, but they're not citizens.
Exactly.
Just get out. We don't have to tolerate this. Go home. You're not afforded the same rights as the rest of us. Get out.
But Sheila, we see from the left, I'm going back to 2016, Justin Trudeau's first middle finger to Trump. Remember hashtag welcome to Canada? Nobody is illegal. We don't even use the word illegal. We call them irregulars. An irregular? I don't know about you, Sheila. When I think of irregular, I think when you go to the bargain bin, you see irregular socks. There's something wrong in the stitching. I mean, we can't even call these people for what they are. That's the mindset of the left right now. And Toronto, sanctuary city, right?
Yeah, Edmonton is too. So don't feel bad. Let's hit an ad break and then come back on the other side because I cannot go long today. So we've got just a few things to talk about on the other side. Perfect. All right, let's hit an ad break and we'll come back. We've got Mark Carney on the other side, the bureaucracy ballooning, and then we've got a couple of cringes.
Gun bans make great distraction.
Reinvigorate the buyback of
Hunters, collectors, competitors, and defenders of tradition are still being targeted, while criminals run wild under liberal policy. But we are fighting back. Join us, Canada's National Firearms Association, in defense of freedom.
You like the hat? Me too. Same strong message about making Canada great again, but in a really cool color, black and gold. There's other colors available, and it's an all-Canadian site. So if you want to signal your tribe or trigger a liberal, go to mcgahats.ca today.
Canadians know the national anthem. They stand in silence to remember those who died for this country. But not every Canadian knows their rights and freedoms. The Freedom Passport will change that. It looks and feels like a Canadian passport, but contains the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms in a portable, easy-to-read format. The Freedom Passport. Order one for yourself and for all the freedom lovers that you love at freedompassport.ca.
All right, we're back. Let's go into Mark Carney. He says we're going to double our non-U.S. exports over the next decade. To where and how?
Is there a bookie, Sheila, that would take action on that? Because I can make up for my NFL bets on the weekend.
Like, in a shifting global trade landscape, Canada's new government is focused on what we can control. We're going to double our non-U.S. exports over the next decade. Again, to where? To whom? To what market? Why wouldn't we try to get access to the world's largest market? We're going to double our non-U.S. exports, secure new opportunities for Canadian businesses. How? Where? And create tens of thousands of new careers for Canadian workers.
Well, Sheila, I look at his traveling itinerary this week. First, it's off to China. I wonder if he's going to have any success in getting the Chinese government to take those debilitating tariffs off canola oil. I know Saskatchewan is suffering from that. And then where shall he be going? Oh, that wonderful democracy known as Qatar, which I think is now the number one funder of terrorism, given the problems in Tehran recently. So I'm wondering what the agenda is here. Is it a distraction? Is it to, run cover for the lack of elbows up trade deal? I mean, wasn't that the ostensible reason, Sheila, we voted? When I say we, I talk about the greatest number of seats going to the Liberal Party. Wasn't that the reason? He was the adult in the room. He was the CEO. He was the businessman. He was the tough guy that could deal with the big bad orange monster to the south. But what have we got? How many months has it been since April? It's been more than half a year. Nothing.
Well, I'm going to put something into context for you. And maybe I know that regular viewers of the show know that I like to use this thing as a benchmark for what we're able to do versus what we are doing. David, do you know how long it took to build the Alaska Highway from the United States through BC all the way to the north through treacherous conditions, cold weather, no supplies, and like half the menfolk were fighting a war? So, and a lot of our resources were retooled to the war effort. And it was built by the U.S. Corps of Engineers and civilian workers, Canadian and American. Do you know how long it took to build? Don't Google it.
No, I wouldn't do that, Sheila. I'm sorry to say, for such an important infrastructure project, I have no idea.
Just guess. Again, you're going through mountains. You're building through muskeg. It's loosely uncharted. You have no idea what you're dealing with. And a lot of men are fighting the war already. So just guess.
Okay. I'm going to do some math here. I know in 1931 in Toronto, they actually built Maple Leaf Gardens in 8 months, which is spectacular.
Oh, and I'll give you a little more context. It's
okay.
1,500 miles. So whatever that is in Canadian, over, what is that? About 2,700 kilometers, something like that.
To me, it has to be at least 5 years.
8 months.
What? The same as Maple Leaf Gardens?
8 months. 8 months using archaic equipment. Half the men are over fighting a war through treacherous conditions and mountains and muskeg, uncharted land. 8 months.
How's that possible?
Will.
Wow.
Realizing there's a need to connect Alaska to the lower 48 during a wartime, sheer will and the necessity that you needed to get it done. And Mark Carney has been Prime Minister since March 9th, and we've done nothing. So tell me more about these markets that we're going to access by building things and creating jobs.
Well, Sheila, that is $1 million trivia question. No one's going to get it, especially in Hogtown. I mean, I look to the still unknown opening date of the Eglinton Crosstown LRT. 19 kilometers. It's not even a full subway. Half of it is above ground. It was supposed to be finished 5 years ago. They no longer give an estimated date. And it's also, by the way, $1 billion over budget. So can you imagine something that started pretty much 15 years ago is still under construction? There's no trains running on it with people in them yet.
You can't get a pothole filled in 8 months around here. You know, and it's just regulations, levels of government bureaucracy. Speaking of which, that's a great segue into our next topic. The federal bureaucracy costs this is why we can't get things built. This is why we can't have nice things. The federal bureaucracy has soared 80% as Ottawa, don't say Ottawa, it's the Liberals, have added 99,000 staff.
What are they doing?
Well, yeah, try getting a passport these days. According to the report, Ottawa added a red deer's worth of bureaucrats over the past 10 years, while approving $1.5 billion in bonuses since 2015. So not only are there more of them, they're making more. You're getting less service, but they're getting bonuses for the services they aren't providing to you.
And unbelievable, because unlike the private sector, Sheila, that generates wealth, this is a drain on wealth. This
Yes.
is taking our money to fund these salaries. And really, like you said, I mean, just trying to get basic things done, just trying to get a human being on the phone. And I mean, and also what's comical, we're 4 years past the peak of COVID, and there's still this ongoing battle to get these guys and gals into the office, to get them out of their houses, this work at home. And by the way, if you, like the example you said of having a passport fulfilled, how do you do that at home in the first place? And wasn't this, an answer to a pandemic, which is now years in the rearview mirror, and yet somehow this is a safety issue to have them come back to work? I'm not kidding you, Sheila. That's what the union is saying. It is a safety issue.
Well, and they're saying it's like a mental health issue because they're entitled to work-life balance, except the rest of us have to work more away from our families to make sure that these well cared for public sector workers get all the perks that none of us get because we're in the private sector, and the private sector has to be responsible to a bottom line. Like when they say it's their human right to work from home 3 days a week, I just want to launch these people into the surface of the sun. You know?
No, but Sheila, what you just said, that's the buzzword, the life-work balance.
Work-life balance, yeah, I wish.
How was it working prior to 2020? It was working out just fine, wasn't it, when you had to go into the office 5 days a week, right?
Also, and these work from home government workers are not like a work from home Sheila worker, because I never get away from this desk. I'm at home, so I'm always on call. That's how it is in the private sector. But these guys who work for the government, 4:15 rolls around and they just shut her down, and you don't hear from them until the next day at 9, maybe, plus all their little breaks that they mandate themselves during the day. It's
So
not
true.
like a regular private sector person who has a home-based business where you are on call 24 hours a day. It's definitely not like that for them.
But Sheila, correct me if I'm wrong, but a few months ago, didn't Carney float a number, and by the way, I'll believe it when I see it, of a certain percentage of federal bureaucrats are going to be laid off? I know that's what Trump's done. I think there's 300,000 people out of the U.S. civil service right now, thanks to rollbacks. But, I've got some recollection. There was some number Carney said that they were going to...
Oh, yeah, and then PSAC was all up in arms.
Yeah.
Because the Conservatives said, yeah, we need to shrink the size of the government bureaucracy, and we should do that through attrition. Like, just not when you retire, you quit or whatever, you move on. We don't replace you. We figure out how to replace you internally. So no one was actually actively being fired. And then the PSAC was like, we have to make sure that Conservatives never get elected, and then the Liberals get elected. And like, we might do that too. And they're like, well, you get what you get, I guess.
Yep. It's so true. I mean, and you know what? That's the reason, Sheila, the worst city in our Dominion to do streeters is Ottawa, because everybody is either working for the government, or they have a family member working for the government, or they know somebody working for the government. So they run away from a microphone.
Oh, for sure. For sure. If you laid off 3 out of every 2 government workers, would you even notice the difference?
No.
And again, there's some good ones out there. You're in the public service, you're conservative. I really feel bad for you because you're surrounded by crazy people. Don't send me emails. I'm not talking about you. But you are in those offices. You know exactly who I'm talking about. I'm talking about your colleagues. Don't write me insincere letters. Sheila, you attacked government workers and I'm a conservative. Well, then I'm not talking about you. I'm not.
And you know something, Sheila? I'm not going to mention her name, and this goes back years ago, but I met a lady who had a temporary contract with TVO. That stands for TV Ontario. It's kind of like Ontario's version of the CBC, and there's no reason for it. But anyway, she had, I think it was a 6-month temporary contract, and she wanted a full-time job. So she would get into the office early. She would always be the last one to leave. And then after 2 weeks of this, she was called into her manager's office, and she thought it was to get a pep talk. She could not be more wrong. She was put on the spot, and what was said to her was, we've noticed you coming in early, leaving late. Why are you trying to make the rest of us look bad? And needless to say, her temporary contract did not transform into full-time employment. There's a mindset, at least when it came to TV Ontario, of how the public sector thinks.
Oh, I know a few young tradesmen who ended up working in government or in unionized shops, and they got the same talk. They're like, don't walk so fast. Don't walk so fast. That's not what we do around here.
Yeah.
So,
unless there's a fire, you don't walk that fast.
right. Let's get into a couple of the daily cringes because we've got 5 minutes left in the show. Mark Carney makes a repeat appearance here. He really leans into this, like, I'm a hockey player, athlete kind of thing, and that's what makes me a regular dude and not a globalist bankster. He's just a guy he's just a regular old rink rat eating fries and gravy. Down at the
but
hockey
wait a minute,
rink.
Sheila. I think he's so much more. Didn't he play goal for the Harvard team? And when I say play goal, I know he wasn't the starter. He might not even be the backup. He might have been the third string goalie sitting in the stands. But there is that connection. I think I've heard him speak about that.
Yeah, he said he played for Harvard. And then when you look, you drill down and it's like, oh, you laced up for Harvard. And then you carried the jock straps for the real players, I guess. Anyway, this is him. He's somebody let him use a skate sharpener machine, and he actually posted this to his social media to make him seem relatable. But he still has that praying mantis sort of posture no matter what he does.
That was a serious skate. We got sparkles.
Don't worry, I'm not gonna just drop you into I'm gonna turn this on. And then you can take a practice pass.
Ooh, I love the smell. It's funny that,
Sure
you know how reminiscent the smell is? Like you hear the smell, it's like, okay, I'm at a rink. There you go. By looking at the skates, Joe can tell what machine sharpened the Pro. Yes, the Pro. That we had.
Voila.
Oh.
You've sharpened skates. Just like that.
You know what, Sheila? I'm calling BS on that. And you know why? As much as I've been around hockey all my life, practically played it for decades, I would never consider myself to have the expertise to get on the other side of that counter and sharpen my skates or anyone else's skates. I don't think it's something you just pick up like that. And so I wonder, it's too bad we don't have an accompanying video. Whoever the poor soul was that got his skates sharpened by Mark Carney, getting on the ice and doing a face plant.
Oh, yeah, he's out there skating on his ankles. Yeah, I mean, I guess when you can't show up to a blue-collar work site, this is the best you can get to interacting with the peoples. Like with the normals, this is what he thinks the normals do, because he can't go to a regular job site where you know, the people who you are preventing from building things might say some mean things to you. So you have to go to these very controlled things where there's just one guy instead of what appears to be a hostage video when the Liberals go to like a steel shop or whatever.
You know, I so hate these contrived photo ops, Sheila. And to your point, a construction site, is that what waits ahead in the months before us, that Mark Carney will go to a construction site and, I don't know, get behind the wheel of a bulldozer? I mean, I wouldn't know how to operate a bulldozer. But then again, I guess it goes back to our first topic, AI. They'll do some, you know, grok generation images for that one, I suppose.
Would you guys like to see videos of me running a skid steer? Let me know in the comments because I could post those. All right. We've got one more cringe. I can actually do those sorts of things, unlike our politicians. We've got one more daily cringe. Right. David, we all have things that we go through, right? Like we all have stuff in our lives that, you know, upset us or go wrong or whatever. And the dignified thing is to maybe you don't want to, maybe you're not like me and you just keep all your problems to yourself. Just stuff them down into a boiling little pit inside you and then take them out at the archery lane or whatever. Maybe you do need an outlet. Maybe you turn to your friends to cry or whatever. You have that one friend that you could just like turn into a blubbering mess and she would never judge you. Lise. But if I ever take my problems to the internet as a snotty, bawling mess, get the butterfly net. Go talk to Danielle Smith and have her compassionate care me and take me to the nut house. But these liberal women, if you can call them that, they love bawling on the internet for attention. And I just don't understand it. It is so undignified.
And it's probably a white, I haven't seen the video, it's probably a white liberal woman because that's usually
every time with she obvious issues with her father. You can tell by the haircut. Let's watch this. I just, out of the corner of my eye, I'm just watching this madness.
Oh no.
She's just coming unglued. We've got a mental health crisis with white liberal women, for sure. They're dangerous to themselves and others. Watch this.
He shot her because she was queer.
How did he?
He shot her because she was queer. You can see so clearly. I didn't think that it was like that before, but when you see the footage, he shot her because she was queer. And you voted for this.
Sheila, I'm not trying to be mean or funny, but that is a woman?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
For sure.
That is
even the worst of the liberal men.
As the Supreme Court Justice Sheila Martin would say, that is a person with a vagina?
You got it. Like, this is what happens when your hormones are all screwed up. Like, this is a nightmare. But this is what happens when you are on a little bit too much liberal social media. This is a blue sky doing this to her. And TikTok, she's been told that there's a genocide against people who are on the diverse sexuality spectrum or whatever you're going to describe it as today. But she's been told there's a genocide against her. So she thinks that if the police act in self-defense, apparently they know before they pull the trigger. They're like, yep, gay.
Oh, this is the Minneapolis incident she's talking about.
Like she's saying that lady was shot because she was queer, as though that was the concern of that ICE agent as the tires were squawking in his direction. Like, you have to be crazy to think this. This woman needs family that loves her to intervene to help her instead of family that reinforces whatever this is.
Well, because we're so close to the Christmas season that just passed, I'm going to give a gift to all the people in the world like her. And it's simply this, Sheila. If you are gunning your SUV right for a police officer with his handgun drawn, 100 out of 100 times that police officer is going to shoot because you, in his or her eyes, are trying to kill them with your vehicle.
Yeah, and even if it were accidental, so you still get to hit him. He doesn't get to save his life.
Yeah.
Even if it's an accident, and like when you gun a vehicle towards a police officer, I'm just not even going to give you the benefit of the doubt. But even if it were an accident, so if it were an accident, he's just supposed to let himself get hit by the car. Is that what you're saying?
It's outrageous, and I mean, in the aftermath of that, what have we seen? The mayor in Minneapolis, the mayor in Philadelphia, saying that we will arrest you as an ICE agent. Now, Sheila, there is some nuance here. If an ICE agent, say, was driving impaired, local law enforcement.
Rules apply. Yeah, for sure.
If there was a 911 call and the ICE agent was beating his spouse, yes, you can be arrested. But you cannot be arrested for fulfilling your federal job of law enforcement. And that's what these people are talking about in terms of arresting them.
Yeah. Yep.
Can't do it.
That poor lady's on too much mainstream media, but that is like, that's what the other side thinks. And they are dangerous, I think, probably to themselves, but also to everybody else. They've been weaponized and radicalized. Like, who radicalized that lady? Instagram, Blue Sky, TikTok, MSNBC, probably.
Yeah. Or whatever course she took in university.
Yeah.
Probably gender studies.
Yep, for sure.
And that's what you get.
They think the rules don't apply to them and that they are the ones being genocided. Look, if you can go on to your social media platform and post that nonsense, you're one of the freest people who's ever lived in the history of humanity.
Bingo.
I think we can agree to that.
You nailed it, Sheila, because that's the thing. She thinks this is furthering her cause or the cause of the left. You know, this rhetoric and this, emotional basket case, crying about somebody who was, as far as I can tell from the video footage, was moments away from committing vehicle homicide.
Yep.
And she lets that go. Is it still up? Or did she have buyer's remorse? Maybe she had a little bit too much bourbon and said, "Oh, what was I thinking?" But is it still up there to be found?
Yeah, it's everywhere.
That's sad.
You gotta surround yourself with people who want the best for you, and that is not the best for her.
No.
I know that there's no way in hell Lise would let me anywhere near anything if I looked like that. If I was having some sort of crisis, even if it were like a legitimate crisis, she would be like, "No, girl, no, no. I'm taking you in the camper van, and society will not see you for 48 hours until you're better." But like this is a person who has nobody who wants the best for them.
You know, I've only met Lise twice, and I love Lise. I really do.
She's a delight.
And what you're just saying is making me love her more.
Yeah, for sure. She would be like, I've got a case of beer. We're in the camper van. The world is not going to see you for 48 hours until whatever this is done. It's just you and me. Like, she would never in a million years let me near the world looking like that. But this lady, her friends are like, yes.
Oh, Sheila, you're making perhaps a fatal assumption. Maybe she doesn't have friends. So there's no one to do that intervention, which might explain the bitterness.
No, they're all in a little cult. Anyways, that's it. We've got one chat, and it is from, oh God, my glasses. Hang on. It's very small. Amused but concerned. Me too, buddy. Me too. Gives us $27.99. I don't see a chat. If there was a chat, I'm sorry we missed it. Maybe we'll read it tomorrow if it didn't attach. If you hit send before you were able to attach a chat. But thank you so much. That's very generous. And
it is very generous. Thank you very much. Well, folks, Sheila and I both have capers to attend to. So tomorrow, I can tell you, it is Sheila again and the ever lovable Lise Merle. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. A special thank you for those who gave donations. And as always, stay safe and stay sane.
Big news, Rebel News now has premium memberships on X, Locals, and right here on YouTube. For just $4.99 a month on YouTube, you'll get loyalty badges, custom emojis, and access to members-only chats during our live streams. At $8.99 a month, you'll also unlock Rebel News Plus shows and our documentaries. But here's the catch. YouTube could cancel that premium tier at any time. That's why the best way to support us is at rebelnewsplus.com. It's just $8 a month, cheaper if you go annual, and you'll get exclusive extras like an ad-free site, comments access, and even the chance to submit op-eds. Wherever you join us, thanks for keeping our independent journalism alive and strong.